Marcus, what's up, man?
Yo, what up, man?
How are you?
I'm good, man. Another day in paradise.
Awesome, man. Happy to hear it.
Yes, sir. What about you? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Just another day.
That's what I'm talking about.
So, I got a couple questions for you about your, upbringing in the sport and career. And then after that, if you're down, I'd love to, pick the main event or the main card for the card that you're on June 6th.
Okay, bet.
Awesome. All right. So, to start us off, you were born in Detroit. So, how did you find MMA growing up, and what made you motivated to commit to the sport?
So actually, yeah, I was born in Detroit, but I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona for the most part. Moved around Arizona a lot. And honestly, I just ran into the sport by accident, really. I was working a job. I had two kids. My life was in shambles. I was constantly fighting on the streets regularly. And a MMA gym opened up across the street, and I was like, man, I just need to get my feet wet, and wanted to just, start training. Martial arts is something I loved my whole life. I always was intrigued by martial arts, but never had the finances to actually get into it. Really didn't even get into it with a plan of fighting. Just got into it with a plan of humbling myself and wanting to grow. Uh, so I went over to the gym, and next thing I know, I'm training. Then I took 5 fights that year, and I just took off from there.
Well, yeah, like I wanted to build off from that. You really did take off from there, and you ended up joining MMA Lab in Phoenix, which is a super prestigious camp. How did that move happen, and how has that environment shaped you as a fighter?
Yeah, so I was at the UFC gym. It started as LA boxing, but then it turned to the UFC gym. And it just so happens a lot of the coaches over at the UFC gym were from the MMA lab. And they have been telling me for the whole time, like, hey man, if you really want to take it to the next level, you need to go over to the MMA lab. You need to start training over there. And it took me a while to make the change because I'm really I like to stick to my teams. Like I'm a really loyal type of guy. So long story short, I ended up Randy Stanky and Joe Riggs and Tim Welch ended up talking me into going over to the lab, and I pulled up over there. John Crouch was at a couple of my fights, and I had met him a couple of times, and then finally he was just like, "Hey man, come over to the gym whenever you get a chance." And I was like, "All right, cool." So I ended up pulling up to the gym, and everything changed from there. I just realized how serious guys took it and what work ethic it took to actually really evolve in the sport. And even at that time, still, I really wasn't even like dedicated in a point of like trying to go pro or trying to get in the UFC or anything like that. I just noticed that I wanted to build a skill set and I wanted to feel comfortable in my own skin. And it just started to grow from there. And then, iron sharpens iron. So as I started to keep training with guys like Sugar, like Mario, like Kyler, like Ben Henderson, like all these guys, I just started to really come into myself and found my family there.
You name very notable fighters that have come out of MMA Lab. When you first, walked in that very first time, what was it like seeing these fighters without knowing the path that you were soon going to be on?
Honestly, I didn't even think anything of it. For me, it wasn't even like a crazy transition. It wasn't until we started training and I started to see the difference in the level of training that I started to realize, like, oh man, this is something that, man, I really love this. I love the environment. I love how humble these guys are, how down to earth these guys are, how these guys are real people who are comfortable in their skin, who don't have to project any type of masculinity. They just are.
Mhm.
And then right away they put me in the Shark Tank. So right away I was going with guys like Alex Caceres, because I was at 45 at the time, so I was going with a lot of the 45ers. Alex Caceres was my first cage round in the gym. So it was like just getting right into the deep end. So it was awesome just going in there and seeing these guys be real people and getting to work and train with these guys.
Alex Caceres is a super established fighter in the sport. Who else in a MMA Lab do you train with day to day that's, pushing you to be better?
Yeah, Mario Bautista, Kyler Phillips, Ben Henderson, Jared Cannonier, Jose Delgado, Jakar Close we trained for a long time. I trained with Sugar for a long time before he ended up going over to Red Hawk full time. Courtney Casey, man, the list continues to go on. We have so many guys, and we all train together regularly. Ezra Elliott, guys that don't really know about yet, but they're gonna know these guys. Bryce Meredith, Abdul Kamara, so many guys, that come out of that camp that have come through, to Mike Hamill, so many guys throughout the years.
You named Kyler Phillips at the start of that, and I've seen on social media Kyler Phillips is, a lot more of a friend to you more than just a fighting partner. Tell me more about that relationship and how those build in MMA Lab.
So actually, me and Kyler have been best friends for a long time. We actually met at the MMA, or at the UFC gym, and I was working in the cannabis industry at the time, and he was young, and he'd come over there and train over there and teach over there sometimes, and he would always be like CBD, CBD, and we'd always had this little inside joke that we had, and just through the years we created a friendship. His first UFC fight, I ended up going with him. I took my first pro fight a week before he had his first UFC fight, and he ended up taking me with him to the UFC, and I went with him to Dubai. So I've been with him for every fight but two of his fights. And he's my brother. He's my best friend, and he's my brother. And we just have grown together so much. Watching him be a father, watching him be a man, and same thing likewise. Him watching me be a father, watching me be a man, watching us come into ourselves. So yeah, he's one of my best friends.
That's truly awesome. And I saw in his last fight against Jourdain, you were in his corner. Is that something we should be expecting moving forward and vice versa with him in your corner?
Yeah, sometimes he'll be in my corner, but it just kind of depends. He has a young son, so he won't be in my corner for this one. Uh, but yeah, I would love for him to be in my corner anytime he wants to. But I'm always in his corner too. Unless I have a fight coming up too. We like to be there for each other. So he's giving me a lot of cage rounds right now too. Him and Mario Batista are giving me a lot of work right now. So we're constantly there for each other, even if we're not in each other's cage or if in each other's corners. We're always there for each other in camp.
That's awesome. And those are the relationships that, really build you as a fighter. Moving on a little bit, I wanted to talk about the nickname, the Maniac. Where did that come from, and does it describe how you approach the sport, do you think?
Yeah, a little bit, but it actually came from I was doing tattoos, and my boys were like, "Man, you need a tattoo name." And I was a little bit crazier. Obviously, I was always the friend that was just crazier. Uh, and they're like trying to throw all these names around, and one of my buddies was like Maniac, and I was like, "Yeah, I like that," and he liked it because he's like, "Oh, you're a maniac." But for me, my favorite book growing up was called Maniac Mcghee. It's a children's book, and it described a lot of my life. If you go read the book, like my wife's name's Amanda, the kid's girlfriend in its name's Amanda. I had a lot of times where I was put out of my house growing up, and this kid ran away from home, and all these different types of things. So it's crazy how a lot of what happened in that book encompassed my life. Uh, and it constantly encompassed my life. So for me, that was the biggest part of that was the book, the children's book. So I actually adopted the name because of the children's book. So it really had nothing to do with my fighting style. It had more to do with that story.
That's actually a super cool meaning, and to be honest, I did not expect that at all.
Yeah.
So you have this inner meaning, and it's honestly like super deep and on an emotional level. But it's on the surface level to these, refs to the fighters. It's you're the maniac. What's that look early on in your career on these guys' faces when you tell them your nickname?
It's diverse. I think some people are like the maniac. Your style is kind of maniac, like, and you go back and you look at my fights, and I kind of do fight like a maniac. So it's like I think that they see that as well. Like that comes a part of it. So it even though it has a deeper meaning, the way that I fight is very very similar to the nickname. Like you don't know what you're gonna get from me. I have a big bag, big tool belt. And I like to work on all my skill sets, and I like to be free in there, like a maniac. So I definitely think that it does encompass a lot in who I am as well, and being able to direct that maniac energy.
Well, obviously, being free and being a maniac in the cage has worked out for you as you went 4-0 in the UFC to start out with finishes over Journey Newsome, JP Buys, Gaston Bolanos, and then the decision win over Jonathan Martinez. At what point did you feel like everything was really clicking?
Even before I got in the UFC, I felt that way. I just felt like I was coming into myself, like I was right where I needed to be. My feet were where they were supposed to be. Faith, in the way I fathered my children, and the way I was a husband to my wife, and everything. And even now, it feels that same way. It's just like my feet are right where they're supposed to be. And it's something crazy because, like, most people are like, I knew I was going to be in the UFC. I knew I was going to do these things. And that was never my approach. My approach was to evolve and to grow and to become more of a man that I wanted to look in the mirror at, and through doing that, I ended up stepping into the role which I am, in the UFC, fighting all these names, So it's been a blessing to say the least.
You've been not only just fighting these guys, but finishing them. You have serious knockout power. In the gym, in the pre camp, is that something you're training specifically, or is that just something that's happening naturally?
Yeah, I train all these things as well, but it's more natural. I don't try to knock guys out in the gym. I like to place my shots. Even though my nickname is the Maniac, I'm very methodical about the way that I break the game down. I'm a student of the game. I'm a martial artist first. And I think approaching it that way and approaching it with that type of intent leads to finding finishes, right? Like I have every intention of finding finishes, but I'm not chasing finishes, right? I find them, I set things up, and then when I smell blood, I go for it, and trust myself, trust my training, trust my coaches, trust my teammates, and then just go for it, So I like being a finisher, and that's what I plan to do going forward.
Well, that mentality throughout all your fights has been very successful, and it got you to a point that most people dream of being at. You faced Petr Yan in July 2025, and this is a guy that right after that fight went on to win the Bantamweight title. Most fighters would find a reason to pass that based on intimidation of the name Petr Yan. What motivated you to take it and take on that challenge?
Yeah, for me, every fight's a tough fight, and I'm here to test myself against the best guys in the world. And honestly, it was really surprising. I honestly was looking forward to getting, maybe different names, and I hadn't gotten any names. So at the same time as like I went for the fight and took the fight, I didn't really have too many options. I hadn't been given any other names. I hadn't been given any other opportunities, and I was sitting on the sidelines for 8 months, So it's like I didn't really have a choice in the matter. It was like fight Petr Yan or fight nobody. And so for me, at the same time as I would have said yes anyways, it really wasn't a decision to make. We're at the highest level, and we're here for a good time, not for a long time. So I'm here to fight the best guys that I can fight and put myself up there. And I trust myself. I trust my training. So again, it was a blessing how it ended up working out. Even though we didn't get the win, going in there and testing myself against him and showing the level of my skill, and showing the level of my determination, and flying all the way across the world and doing everything I've done, I think it just showed my character.
I 100% agree. Walk me through that experience preparing for that fight and stepping in there, or not stepping in there, just getting the call and going into pre camp against, a fighter as established as Jan.
Yeah, honestly, everything stayed the same. I have a great team. I have great guys who can mimic him. And I had already done a little bit of mimicking him for Sean's camp, anyways, earlier on. So nothing really changed. We just stuck to the plan. We just were always developing skills, right? So we kept developing skills, and I just saw him as a human being. He's a great fighter, and he's going to be a Hall of Famer for sure. But he's just a man, just like all these guys, just like me. He breathes, he bleeds, he cries, he has family, he's a father, So I took it with the same grain of salt as that. Like, this is just another man who God graced with the ability to fight as well. So we didn't change too much, I think guys go too far to change things, Obviously, you have to adapt to different styles and understand what people want and where they want to be. But other than that, we just worked hard like normal, put one foot in front of the next, and then went out there and did our job.
Well, for me, I think that this comfortability in the ring and or in the cage and this, content with whoever you're against fared really well for you. As Petr Yan is known as a finisher, and you went in there and you went the entire fight and you showed that you are at this level and you do deserve to be fighting the best of the best. What did that fight teach you about yourself and what you need to do moving forwards for your next fight?
It just taught me to trust myself, really trust myself in there, know that I belong there. It also showed me the skill level that I have, like how high of an IQ that I have in this game, to be successful in certain different aspects of my game against a guy such a high caliber. And then also just showed me like my character, showed me that I can show up respect with honor, with all the things, with the fruit of the spirit, with joy, with all these things, and I can go out there and do my job. and it just showed me also like to trust myself even more, to understand that like I do belong here, and this is where I my feet should be, and to go out there and enjoy every single moment.
Like you said, you're comfortable in the ring, you're content with whoever your opponent is, and now moving forward, you're going to be really trusting yourself a lot more. With those three pieces, I think that you're really, ready for success. So you haven't competed since that last fight in July, and that's almost a full year off. How have you used that time, and what does that version of Marcus Mcghee look like showing up on June 6th?
Yeah, I've used that time wisely. I've stayed in the gym. I've been grinding this whole time. I honestly would have assumed I fought a lot sooner and a lot more, and it's not a decision that I got to make. Um, but I've just been evolving. I've just been growing my skill set. I don't really change up anything. My schedule stays the same. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's just opportunity, but this is my job. My job is to train constantly. So I'm constantly in the gym, constantly putting more tools into my bag, growing as a fighter, growing as a man, growing as a martial artist. And I feel like I've made a lot of growth, and I think that the fans will see that as well, that, there's no plateau here. I've made a lot of growth. I grew from fighting Peter, and I went back to the gym and learned even more, and grew even more. And I think the fans are going to see that once I grace the canvas on June 6th.
I think that a scarier version of Marcus Mcghee from last fight is definitely going to be an issue in this division. Your original opponent, Jakub Veglak, pulled out with an injury, he said on his Instagram, and there's been names tossed around, and supposedly you got John Yannis stepping in. So this is a guy who just picked up his first UFC win in April with a first round knockout on a guy who came in on short notice. How do you feel about that change, and what does that late swap affect your, and how does that late swap affect your preparation for camp?
It doesn't change anything, right? I had a job to do. Obviously, everybody who fights in the UFC is worthy of being there. I don't doubt this man for a minute. Obviously the levels are different, and he's going to be stepping up a level, but that doesn't change anything. He could rise to to that occasion. Like I said, I'm just a man. He's just a man. And I have to respect his tool bag as well. And he's going to come to fight. So nothing's changed for me. I've been grinding. Even when I heard that Yakovich pulled out, I didn't change anything. I stuck to the grind. I stuck on everything. I figured they'd find me somebody, and again, the game plan doesn't change. We build up these skill sets to be able to be diverse in whoever it is that we fight. When we first started this, we didn't know who we were going to fight that long out. It was just whoever was going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to have a skill set that can match up against anybody. And I feel like my skill set's going to match up really well against this guy as well.
So you say you think that it's going to match up super well against his, which in honesty I do agree. So he's coming on a bounce back win, and he carries momentum there. Besides, thinking that you'll fare well against him, what more do you know about him, and how do you see this fight, overall playing out?
I see it being more of a striking battle. I can imagine there'll be some grappling in the midst of it as well. But I'm gonna go do the same thing that I plan to do every time. I'm gonna go out there looking for a finish, setting things up, looking to set him up and finish him as well. I think he's gonna come and he's gonna fight hard. He's looking to make a stake claim on the division himself. He wants to come in and right some of the wrongs that he's had. And he's looking to take advantage of the moment. Like you said, he has some momentum going, and he'd like to keep that momentum going. So my plan is to go in there and stop that momentum, and then show the fans that like I'm still here. I'm not here to play games. I'm not here to mess around. All respect due, but I'm coming out here to finish this guy, just like I'm coming out here to finish anybody else who steps in the cage with me, and that's going to be my goal.
I can hear the motivation in your voice, and it's awesome to see, honestly. So you're 35 or 36 years old now, and you have a 10-2 record. You've got a bantamweight title holder on your resume. Where do we go from here after this fight?
Hopefully we go right back into the top 15. I think I should still be in the top 15. Uh, but again, wherever we go, hopefully we're fighting more often, that we're not getting put on the shelf and sitting on idle. I'd like to fight more often. 3 times a year would be great. After this fight, I'd like to fight back in August, September, and then I'd like to fight again November, December. That'd be great. Give me just enough time in between camps. So that'd be the plan. Be more active, and then get back into that top ranking. I'm still chasing after that belt. The belt isn't everything to me. But it is on my list of accomplishments that I want to get to. I would love to be a UFC champion, love to be able to, utilize that type of platform to spread the message that I would like to spread, that humility goes a long way, that faith goes a long way, that being a good man, good human being goes a long way, and that you don't have to step into what this society says that we need to do as far as constantly be looking for likes and subscribes and all these different things, that you can be a good man, that you can be an honorable man, and you can go after, then you can chase after this life just like all these other guys do, with respect and honor.
It's honest. It's awesome to see, and it's awesome to hear from a guy as talented as you are, how you're able to bring it back to what it really means. So, on what you said, you want to fight 3 times a year, and the UFC needs champions that want to fight often. And as a guy who's a title eliminator for Yan, that's completely in the picture. This is a super stacked division. Are there any names you see in that top 15 that you want to go after next?
Yeah, obviously I'd love to go after Vinicius Oliveira, Eamon Zahabi. We were matched up. I would love that fight. Not Daniel Marcos. He's another good one though too. But inside the top 15, David Martinez is another great one as well. Cheeto Vera would be another great fight. Literally all those guys up there would be great. Peyton Talbot as well. We can be the battle of the skateboarders. That'd be cool. So all these guys, I would love to go after all these guys and love to be matched up with all these guys and see how my skill set matches up against their skill set, and create some greatness in there.
Marcus Mcghee versus Cheeto Vera would be a fight of the year contender, 100%. I'm already thinking about it. That would be crazy.
God willing, I go out here, I have a spectacular performance, go out here, get a great finish, and can line that one up. I think that'd be an amazing fight. I've met Cheeto before, stand-up dude. I like his style. I like a lot of things about him. And he's a legend. He's a G. I would love to go out there and get that fight as well. So yeah, man. Got to go out there and handle business first, obviously, and show the UFC why I belong up there. But then those fights will line themselves up.
Well, after a awesome performance, it's going to be hard to shelf a guy like that. And honestly, all of the guys you named are 100% in the picture, I think. So I have one more question before we get into the main card. Outside of fighting, who is Marcus Mcghee when the gloves are off?
Outside of fighting, I'm a faithful servant of the Lord, first and foremost. All glory goes to Jesus Christ. Second, I'm a loving father, loving husband. Third, I'm a gardener and skateboarder. I love getting on my skateboard. I can't wait to jump on my board after this fight. I've been in my garden still. My garden's looking great. I want to continue on that. And then just a brother, a son, a husband, a father, just a regular guy who's trying to achieve greatness in this life, and give all the glory to God for every step that he gives me, every path that he leads me on.
That's awesome, man. Before we get into the card, I just want to say it's truly been an honor. I'm beyond grateful for the opportunity to have you on here.
No, likewise. I appreciate you having me on, man. I know we've been trying to set it up for a bit, and I've been kind of avoiding it, just because schedule. But man, I'm glad to be on here with you.
Thank you so much. And with you being in Phoenix, I hope when my career in this goes off a little more, I can make my way down there to MMA Lab. Get a little workout in.
That'd be sick. That'd be sick, man. Yeah, come check out the gym for sure.
And my buddy's a big skateboarder, so I'll learn a few tricks before I come for sure.
Yeah, we can session it up.
100%. First fight, not fixed yet. We got Marcus Mcghee versus John Yannis. We already know how that fight's going to go. I was looking at these, and I think this is a super interesting fight. Imanol Rodriguez versus Matt Schnell. What do you think for this one?
Rodriguez is on a tear right now, and I think that the stylistic matchup is going to be tough for Snell. He does have, when he gets touched, you could tell that he does fade. And I think that Rodriguez is going to touch him. So we'll see. We'll see how that one fizz out. But I would have to go with, his name's Rodriguez, right? What's his name?
Imanol Rodriguez.
Yeah, so I would say Rodriguez is going to get that one, I think. Matt Snell's tough. I think he's durable, too. Like, he comes back from being hurt, and he wins fights. But yeah, I've been liking what I see with Rodriguez, and he has a great team behind him, so I think that he'll get that one.
I agree with you there. I think that he's just, way faster and has just way more of his career ahead of him as well. So, next fight, and this card is really great. We got Iwo Baraniowski versus Billy Elikana. What do we think for this one?
I'm not too familiar with either of these guys, to tell you the truth. I haven't really got a chance to see them fight, to tell you the truth. So I would say it's a coin toss for me. We'll see how they both go out there. I can see that one's a southpaw. I think we'll see if he can get that left hand going. Um, but I'm just gonna go with Iwa. Yeah, Iwa. I'll go with him.
I'm also going with Ewo. I watched his last fight. He KO'd Austin Lane in what 30 seconds. He's absolutely insane. But Billy's also really good. He has these two big subs against Kevin Christian and Junior Tafa. So I think if he gets it to the ground, it's a different fight. But Ewo's just so strong. I think. Another awesome fight here. We got Bryce Mitchell versus Victor Henry. What do we think for this? Two well-known names in the sport.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I fought on the same card as Bryce Mitchell. I'm familiar with Victor Henry because Kyler fought him outside the UFC. Victor Henry is extremely skilled, has a really big bag as well. I just think that Bryce is going to be a little bit too much for him in the grappling department. I know that Victor Henry is a really good black belt. I just think the top pressure and the tenacity that Bryce Mitchell has is going to play big into his favor, and he's just a tough guy too, and a servant of the Lord as well. He's so dedicated to his faith, and I got to ride with Bryce on that one.
Once again, I think I agree. And, for the same reasons, his grappling is just, on a different level. And he also has a major age advantage. I think he'll have a speed advantage here as well. So, and he has the length advantage there as well. And the height. Oof. Yeah, no, I think I'm definitely going to have to side with Bryce there. All right, the co-main event. This is another super interesting one. We got Brendan Allen versus Edmund Shavazan. What do we think for this one?
Man, I feel like that's going to be a tough one. Tough one to pick from. Brendan Allen's great. I think that if he can get the grappling going, I think that it's going to be a long night for Edmund. But in the same fashion, I think Edmund's striking is going to be a little bit higher IQ than Brendan Allen is. So, man, on this one, I'm going to go with Edmund. I just think that he's got a lot of momentum coming behind him as well. I think he's in a different state of his career where he's looking to go out there and solidify himself. And I love Brendan Allen. I think he's a great fighter, and I could absolutely see him getting the win as well, especially if he can implement his grappling. But I'm going to go with Edmund on this one.
I think that, or I agree once again. I think that if Edmund's able to get his striking loose, get it going, really keep combos going, he's not going to give Brandon Allen the chance to shoot that takedown. But, if he does, where he's not going to go anywhere. So I agree with you there. The main event. This is another super interesting fight here. We got Bilal Muhammad and Gabriel Bonfim. Bonfim, a little taller, longer. What do you think for this one?
Yeah, remember the name. I feel like, man, I like Bonfim. I like his style. I like a lot of what he does, but I think it is going to play into what Bilal is already used to. I think he has fought similar fighters to Gabriel. I think Gabriel is going to have to be the one that makes adjustments more. And I think this one comes down to who's going to be able to make the adjustments, right? And I feel like Bilal Muhammad's going to be able to make the adjustments. I feel like he wants his belt back. I feel like he has a great team behind him as well. And I feel like he's a champion for a reason. He's been a champion for a reason. I know there's that whole thing out there where welterweights who lose the belt go on these horrible skids, but I think that Bilal is going to change the narrative on that, and I think he's going to get the win.
I also agree here. I think that this one's going to be a battle of fight IQ, and with those changes, I think that, you look at just who they've faced. Bilal Muhammad, his competition is just on another level compared to Bonfim, and with those fights going to a decision, he's had full rounds where he does have to make those changes. So I think it's going to be another fight for him versus the biggest fight of Bonfim's life.
Yeah, and I think he's had a little bit of time off too to kind of go back and develop some more skill and to be a little fresher for this fight. So I feel confident in Bilal getting the job done.
I do too. Remember the name.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that finishes up for the main card. And that's all I have for you today, man. I wanted to thank you one more time for the opportunity. And I hope we're able to catch up again after that fight and, do another video in the future.
Let's do it, man. Thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, later.